A young man spent 200,000 yuan on a bride price to marry a beautiful wife, but unexpectedly, on the eve of the wedding, she suddenly had a mental illness episode. Now, the mother-in-law's family not only hid their daughter, but also directly claimed that they would not return a single cent of the 200,000 yuan bride price. The emotionally charged man in front of the camera is the husband, Li Peng. Originally, this year's May 1st was supposed to be the joyous day for him and his wife, Deng Xini. But to his surprise, not only did the marriage not happen, but the 200,000 yuan bride price he borrowed also went down the drain. The mother told the mediator that during the period when her son was dating his fiancée, she never noticed anything unusual about her, and that the fiancée was very beautiful. Friends and neighbors often praised her, saying that the family had found a treasure. This made the mother feel somewhat elated. However, she never expected that on the eve of the wedding, her daughter-in-law would suddenly go mad, not only loudly cursing at her, but also jumping around while cursing, behaving like a lunatic. Seeing his usually gentle wife in this state, Li Peng immediately called his in-laws. However, when the in-laws learned about their daughter's condition, they appeared quite calm and said it was nothing serious, just that she needed to take some medication. It wasn't until this point that Li Peng and his family realized that something was wrong and considered that the daughter-in-law they brought home with the 200,000 yuan bride price might have a mental illness. This was something the entire family could not accept. To find out the truth, the group went to the wife's family home. No matter how hard they knocked on the door, the people inside the bride's family home remained silent. An agitated Li Peng even kicked the door, but there was still no response from inside. It was only after the uncle's account that we learned the uncle was actually the matchmaker for Li Peng and Deng Xini. The uncle said that he owned a supermarket nearby, and Deng Xini and her mother frequently shopped there. Since Deng Xini was indeed very beautiful, he had a strong impression of her. One day, when Deng Xini's mother mentioned that her daughter was still single and wanted to find a partner, the uncle immediately thought of his own 30-year-old single nephew. He then became the matchmaker and brought the two young people together. When he learned that Deng Xini's family demanded a 200,000 yuan bride price, the uncle felt that the money was worth it for such a beautiful bride and even voluntarily lent 100,000 yuan to his nephew. Thus, Li Peng and Deng Xini, having known each other for only 21 days, went to the Civil Affairs Bureau to obtain their marriage certificate. However, just 1 minute before they were to receive the marriage certificate, Deng Xini's parents suddenly produced an agreement for Li Peng's family to sign, stating that if the couple were to divorce for any reason in the future, the bride price would not be refunded. At this time, Li Peng and his uncle were lost in their joy and signed the document without a second thought. It wasn't until Deng Xini had an episode that the family came to their senses. Meanwhile, the onlookers in the neighborhood began recounting the unusual behavior of Deng Xini's family. It turns out that 15 years ago, Deng Xini's parents moved here with their daughter. The family of three has lived a secluded life and rarely interacted with the neighbors. Although Deng Xini is very beautiful and famous as the most beautiful woman in the area, her peculiar temper is also well known. Once, just because a neighbor smelled the flowers Deng Xini was growing in the yard, Deng Xini chased and scolded the neighbor, claiming that her flowers were no longer clean. The neighbor's accounts made the Li family more convinced that Deng Xini must be suffering from a mental illness. To get to the bottom of the matter, Li Peng commissioned a lawyer to obtain Deng Xini's medical records from the local mental hospital.
上大学期间，突然发脾气，把水泼在被子上，把水龙头开到最大，影响室友休息。
It wasn't until we looked at the medical records that we realized Deng Xini had already been ill during her university years. After graduating and starting work, Deng Xini changed jobs 34 times. with none of the positions lasting more than a week. Later, Deng Xinyi's condition worsened. She frequently cried and laughed for no reason, and also hit people and threw things. It was only at this point that Deng Xinyi's parents admitted her to the hospital. Additionally, the medical records clearly stated that her grandmother and her cousins had a history of mental illness. However, the records did not provide a final diagnostic conclusion, only noting that the mental disorder was pending investigation.
后来由于他的母亲说他Yuan没有病，强烈要求去院，医院就没有做出诊断，也只是就是说诊断是精神障碍待查。
It was only through the lawyer's account that we learned that, after Deng Xinyi was hospitalized for half a month, her mother, disregarding the doctor's advice, forcibly discharged her. As a result, her mental illness was never officially diagnosed or entered into the medical records. Since the Deng family had been avoiding contact, Li Peng's family had no choice but to call the police. It was not until the police arrived that Deng Xinyi's parents finally emerged from their home, wrapped up tightly. Faced with the doubts from Li Peng's family, Deng Xinyi's mother remained very assertive, bluntly stating that it was the Li family who proposed the divorce. Their beautiful daughter hadn't even married yet, and was now considered a second-hand bride, and they still wanted them to return the betrothal gift. This was simply outrageous. They haven't even asked the Li family for compensation for emotional distress yet. At this point, the surrounding neighbors also voiced their opinions. The neighbors mentioned that the local betrothal gifts typically range from several thousand to around 100,000 yuan. Deng Xinyi's parents demanded 200,000 yuan right from the start, which seemed quite abnormal to anyone with clear judgment. Doesn't the whole family find something wrong with this?
我们这现在就是10来万就可以了，
没有20万的吧？
没有，这是第一家。
However, Li Peng stated that after meeting Deng Xinyi, he was completely captivated by her beauty. Since he is naturally introverted and not very articulate, the two of them hardly spoke to each other. After both families agreed, they tacitly accepted the relationship. Although his wife was introduced by his uncle, even though Deng Xinyi once seemed to talk to herself, he never considered it to be a sign of mental illness. His mother also mentioned that during the time the couple was together, his daughter-in-law would usually only visit their home during the day. Moreover, she always insisted on leaving before 8 p.m., even after they had obtained their marriage certificate. They never suspected anything and thought it was due to Deng Xinyi's strict upbringing. It wasn't until the night before the wedding, when Deng Xinyi stayed out past 8 p.m. for the first time while preparing for the wedding, that her mood became increasingly irritable. Later, when helping them with the wedding photos, she suddenly had an emotional breakdown and caused a big commotion. Now, the family realizes that the reason for their daughter-in-law leaving before 8 p.m. every time was actually because she needed to go home to take her medication. Otherwise, her condition would flare up.
他为什么晚上回天？可能是晚上叫汽油，不要他就发病。
To resolve this matter, the mediator arranged for everyone to come together at the local judicial office for negotiation. However, Deng Xinyi's mother remained adamant, insisting that her daughter was not ill. If the son-in-law wanted a divorce, they agreed, but they would not refund a single penny of the 200,000 yuan bride price. This was because when they obtained a marriage certificate, Li Peng had signed an agreement. The agreement clearly stated that regardless of the reason for the divorce, the bride price would not be refunded.
根据这种关于调查和这个症状和他对家人的反应，是在我们心里是100%的有精神用的啊。那么调查没有毛病，我们不会去找他了，我们这个钱我都不要了，什么钱我都不要了。
However, when Li Peng proposed taking Deng Xinyi for an examination, Deng's parents agreed, but also stated that if the results were normal, not only would they not return the bride price, but Li Peng's family would also need to pay an additional 100,000 yuan as compensation for their daughter's mental distress. Faced with Deng Xinyi's parents' unreasonable demands, Li Peng's family did not agree. They then indicated that they would file a lawsuit, hoping to seek justice through legal means. In this matter, do you think Li Peng's family is being wronged? And what should they do?